Recently, there were news reports that the IPO plans for WeWork fizzled. The American shared working space and commercial real estate company was believed to be the leader in the co-working business, which was thought to be a major part of the sharing economy. But the company turned out to have an excessive amount of debt. Also, investors became skeptical about the profitability of its business model. The co-working business claims to provide value for both building owners and tenants. Building owners can solve their vacancy issues, and startups that look for small size offices can cut down on overhead. Also, startups getting together in these shared offices can build connections with each other and have better access to venture capitalists or investors. However, there are downsides. The business has no other source of profit generation than re-leasing offices. Many of co-working offices users feel uncomfortable about sharing their workstation with others and prefer privacy. Some complain that the rent is not so reasonable. In the 21st century's new business environment, where companies are created in forms of startups and task forces, there will be constant demand for shared office space. But the business seems to have issues to deal with first, before it establishes itself as a truly innovative business platform. Shared working spaces are a wise choice for startups who need to tighten their belts. So in the passage, we talked about co-working spaces and shared working spaces. They're both the same thing. I think shared working spaces is more commonly used, but co-working office space is fine. And finally, I said, startups who need to tighten their belts. So to tighten your belt means you are trying to save money. You're not trying to spend as much money that you already have. So for example, if you lose your job, you might want to tighten your belt because there's no income coming in. So tightening your belt means holding on to your money. Penny pinching startups can use shared office spaces to save on costs. So I said penny pinching startups. It's quite similar to tightening your belt. To penny pinch is to pinch is to squeeze. So you're holding on to every penny. So someone who's a penny pincher means they're a person who is very cheap. They don't like to spend money. But also startups, they don't have a lot of money. So every cent counts. So they say we're doing penny pinching. We're really trying to save money. Shared office spaces are a breeding ground for networking. It is also a great place to meet angel investors who can provide seed money. So I said the shared spaces are a breeding ground for networking. A breeding ground, really what it means is where a lot of animals meet to breed, but it can also mean where places are very crowded and things happen. So at WeWork, there's so many different young entrepreneurs getting together and talking. It's like a breeding ground for networking. So the environment causes networking. You can also use it, for example, if you think of a kindergarten, you've got all these little kids running around. It's a breeding ground for germs and sickness, because if one kid gets sick, then every other kid gets sick. And then I said, secondly, it's a great place to meet angel investors. An angel investor is usually one of the first investors in a company, and it can be anybody. It could be a firm that has a lot of money. It could be your uncle. It could be anyone who gives you kind of your first investment in any type of company or venture. So it means that they kind of came down from heaven to help you. So we call them angel investors. And usually their contribution to your company is quite small. It's not millions of dollars. It might be $10,000, $20,000. And it can provide seed money. Seed money is the initial money you get when you start a business. So if you have $20,000 to start with, that is your seed money. It's meant to be that you start with a seed and eventually it grows into a plant. But the seed money is the beginning money you get when you start a new business. Shared working spaces create an environment where entrepreneurs can congregate and share ideas. They can also use this environment to meet venture capitalists. So I said where entrepreneurs can congregate. If you're congregating somewhere, you're meeting. So you can say young people like to congregate at bars and nightclubs, or, old people congregate in parks. So here entrepreneurs can congregate. They can get together and share ideas. And finally, I said they can use the environment to meet venture capitalists. So you have your angel investors. They can also be venture capitalists. Venture capitalists can also be angel investors. And venture capitalists usually invest in smaller companies and mentor them and invest in them to grow them. The casual atmosphere of a shared office can be chaotic, because there are no private offices. This environment can disturb people who need to concentrate. So I said the office can be chaotic. So that means there's a lot of chaos. It means a lot of people are walking around, talking on their phones, playing music, eating, drinking, and there's no privacy. So that's there's chaos means there's no order. So if you're in a shared office space, you have to deal with all these different people doing all these different tasks. The open plan office layout has drawn complaints by users of shared office spaces. They say the lack of privacy can be annoying. So we talk about an open plan office. So if you work in an office and there are no cubicles, there are very few partitions, and you can see across the room, that's usually what we call an open plan office. There's no privacy. So in places like WeWork, it's completely open plan. There are kind of couches and chairs and not many desks. So there's absolutely no privacy. So we call that open plan. The leases of shared office spaces are not so affordable. So I said a lease is the contract to rent. So do you own your house? Do you rent it? Or is there a lease on your apartment? So it's usually the contract for rent. And I said it's not so affordable. We can say it's not so cheap, but cheap can imply poor quality. So if you want to say something is affordable, it means it's a lower price, but the quality is good. The monthly fees of co-working spaces may not be worth it. So if you go to some of these big company workspaces, the monthly fee is $400. So it's not worth the price. What it means, it's not worth the value that you're paying, because if you go to a smaller shared working space, you can get a desk for $200. It's just that these bigger ones, they look really nice. They've got really nice coffee, cool music, even beer at some of these places, but you have to pay for it. So you're paying more for, I guess, the image and the style rather than the practicality. So what we're saying here is that the $400 might not be worth it. Thanks, guys, and thanks for downloading. You can follow me on Instagram, MATTSSAM. Also, check out my new podcast, Guerrilla English, on YouTube. Thanks for downloading. Bye-bye.